you will recognize the voice of my guest today. It is one you have heard many times over the years and is broadcast on over 40 radio stations across the nation. The ever-popular Mr. David Miller of Swingin Down the Lane. Growing up in New Jersey, Mr. Miller listened to the radio station WNEW and their program called Make Believe Ballroom. And that is exactly what young David did. Visualize the likes of Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, and Glenn Miller crooning and playing to the music of the big band era, all the while he was doing his homework. It was in 1983 that David began sharing his love and knowledge of his music with his radio audience and birthed his show Swingin Down the Lane. And now it is only natural he has written a book titled Close Encounters, because that's what it is, excerpts from interviews with such greats as Linda Ronstadt, Frankie Lane, and Buddy Morrow. In this book, he also recounts the influence this style of music has had on his life and tells how a chance encounter with bandleader Stich Henderson changed his career path forever. It was the 1920s when big bands came into being, and though they once had a decline during the birth of rock, they are back again today, and Mr. Miller has been a stalwart fan dedicated through all the ups and downs to keep this music genre alive and well. It is my pleasure to welcome to the table the big band era collector, enthusiast, aficionado, and host of his own show, Swingin Down the Lane, Mr. David Miller.
Well, thank you so much. My gosh, that is a gushing
intro.
Yes. I'll try to live up to it. Okay.
Oh, I'm sure you will. So I got to tell everybody that I prepped you before the show and made you the perfect guest because I said, David, I love you. I do. I love everything that you've done. So you said in your book you fell in love with the big band sound at age 5. Tell us about that love affair. Was there like a defining moment, or did it just kind of grow over time?
Well, I think it started really when I was supposed to be doing my homework. Mm-hmm. And I found, to my great amazement, that I could do my homework and listen to the radio at the same time. Now, I don't want any kids to listen to that and say, that's what I've been doing wrong all this time. But it worked for me. And it was a wonderful program. You know, I was fortunate to be brought up in northern New Jersey, which meant we lived about, 15 miles away from New York City.
Close.
That meant we had all kinds of radio stations. I mean, there was a specialty one on Italian-American music, another one on pure jazz, and, of course, a symphony one that was sponsored, I think, by the New York Times. And then there were 3 different stations that I could listen to that played the music that I came to love. I remember one time in our family, we always ate promptly at 6 o'clock. And I was in the living room listening to the Make Believe Ballroom, and my mother called, David, wash up, it's dinner time. And I said, I'll be there in a minute. I just want to listen to the end of this music. And my father, who normally didn't say much about me, said, that isn't music. I was outraged. It was Count Basie's Jumping at the Woodside. And I wanted to hear that wild clarinet solo before I went to dinner. Well, I was probably at that time 8 years old at the time, and I just realized that this was my kind of music. It was interesting. And then along came Sinatra, and I had a new appreciation for the vocalists, and it went on from there. Now, of course, I had to lead I had to make a living.
Yeah.
And for a lot of years, my love for music was simply going to a concert now and then. If a big band came to town wherever I was living, I'd go there and I'd enjoy it thoroughly. But then I got a job with RCA. And RCA at that time was putting out a whole series of LP albums, that new technology.
Long play.
Yes, long play.
33s.
And they were going back into their archives to the wonderful music that I listened to as a kid and converting it to LPs.
From like mono to stereo? Or
no,
but
they
just
didn't,
from 45s to 33s.
45s had not been invented. Let me think. No, 45s, I think, came a little bit after LPs.
Oh. So converting it from what?
From, the old 78s.
Oh.
78 RPM records. The ones.
Y'all lost me a long time ago.
Well, listen.
You got to know your record
The
size.
78 RPM records, I have 4,000 of them in my basement.
My Lord.
Oh, I
But
wonder how
that's
much that's worth.
That's
Right.
another story. What's it worth?
I wonder how much it's worth.
0.
Really?
Really. If you want to come,
I bet that's not true.
well, most. I bought the 4,000 one day in Pittsburgh for $250, and
that takes up a whole room.
and then I had to take them from Pittsburgh to Indianapolis to Houston, and finally to Little Rock, and
Had to rent a van.
I don't know where. Yes, actually, had to. Oh, you bet. Well, anyway.
All right, we're going off the rail here. All right. So so what if your dad did not like that kind of music? What kind of music did he like?
My dad played piano, classical piano. He wasn't into sports at all because he realized that if he hurt his hand or his arm, any ideas of a career in music would just disappear. As it turns out, he went to engineering school. He went to MIT, but he played classical music for his own delight. We had a piano in our home.
So love of music, it runs in your family. Is your mother a musician?
Not at all, no.
She got an ear at all?
No, but there was what would we call it, a piano quintet? Yeah, I suppose we'd call it. I'm going to call it anyway, a piano quintet in our house.
Who's that?
My grandfather played the cello.
Beautiful.
My Aunt Marge played the viola. My father,
What's the
piano.
viola? What's the viola? Violin?
The one that's bigger than a violin but smaller than a cello.
Yeah,
The one in between.
Under your chin? You play it under your chin?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And see, I had my grandfather, my father, my aunt.
That's a tree.
That's
three.
trio. And then we had a violinist and a second violinist who wasn't a member of the family. But they played strictly for their own enjoyment. They got together once a month during the winter months, and they rotated at whose home they were going to play. So I would once every, 5 months, while I'm listening to my kind of music upstairs, could hear the strains of a piano-string quartet down in the...
You didn't sit down there and listen to it? I guess it's your parents. You're like, no, I'm not doing it.
I did not.
Wow, that just seems lovely. If that was going on in my house, I'd be sitting right in the middle of it.
Well, you have good taste then. My taste, according to my father, was
so it's
way
interesting.
off
You know,
theme.
piano, they say, is very, very centric with math. And your father was an engineer.
Exactly, that's true. Yeah.
Um,
The only time he and I, well, two things. He liked Gershwin, but he liked Gershwin because of Gershwin's semi-classical music. And he told me one day, he said, "Who's that singing?" And I said, "It's Joe Stafford." And I said, "She's good." She said, my dad said, "She's good. She has perfect pitch."
there you go.
So
I guess it's been going on for generations. A guy was laying my carpet the other day in my house, and he was listening to Glenn Campbell or somebody, I don't know. And I said, "Oh, I know all that old music. He was, it's all ballads." And He said, well, the music the kids are listening to today is just terrible. And I thought, gosh, it just go on forever.
I think so.
I think it does.
I mean, we're talking about all the way back to your dad, David. And
Yes.
you're no spring chicken. I mean, how long ago was that? That was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
So did you always think you were going to have a career in music?
No, I had no idea of it. In fact, at RCA, I just thought, oh, this is really neat, because anybody at a certain managerial level was entitled to 15 LPs a month. They circulated a list to all of the offices, and you checked off all the ones you wanted.
And RC is a record company.
RCA.
What did it stand? RCA.
RCA Victor.
Yeah.
It used to be Radio Corporation of America.
Mm-hmm. They're not even around anymore, are they?
Yes.
I think they still exist.
They are.
They should be part of a conglomerate by now.
I think that's how it works.
RCA had rough days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, RCA owned NBC, the Today
Really?
Show, and all that. Yeah, I worked at 30 Rock, and on the 4th floor were all of the studios for NBC New York. So, but here I get these 15 albums a month. Well, I had to get something to play them on, and that's how my interest was reawakened, because I was already in my 30s by the time I started working with RCA. So
we skipped 10 years in
yes,
there.
we skipped 20 years actually. When I was
did you go to college?
I went to college. Yes.
Did you graduate? Did you get a degree?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, well, I didn't. That's fine if you did. But what, did you get a degree in broadcasting?
No, psychology. I went to Princeton, got my degree in psychology, and
Did you practice psychology?
well, yes.
Besides
but
on
I
your
know
children?
what you're thinking about when
What?
you say practice. I was not a clinician. I was a social psychologist, which means, in my case, studying people's attitudes, what makes people
for
change
like marketing.
their attitudes.
For like marketing.
Marketing research was if I had to put two words together to describe my real career, it was marketing research. That's what I was doing at RCA.
Did you go to World War? Did you go to World War II?
I was not old enough.
Oh, you lucked out.
Yes.
Did your dad go to World War II? He's probably too old.
He went to World War One.
Yeah.
Interesting. He was at MIT and he got drafted and was in the Army for about 8 months, I think. And after the war, they had a bonus for all veterans, and he turned it down. He said, I wasn't in it enough.
That's so honorable.
I didn't earn it.
Nobody would do that today. Now they're always trying to get the man. That is so honorable, really. Mm-hmm. You listened to WNEW Make Believe Ballroom. Yeah. Did you? And you saw live performances probably in New York City. Did you
yes.
catch the train and drive over there when you were in high school or something?
I'd take the train and the subway and go to Greenwich Village and great Dixieland places there. And they had they had jazz clubs in the village. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't go to Nick's, you went to Eddie Condon's place. And, they had music started. I don't know when it started, but I know that it played until 3 a.m.
How old were you? Could you stay out as late as you wanted?
The first time I went there, I was underage.
They didn't care, did they?
Which in New York City was 18. I was 21 in New Jersey. So, in fact,
so you were under 18 in bars in New York City.
Well,
that's good. I like that.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Close.
I will tell you. On my 18th birthday, it happened to fall on Easter, so obviously it was a Sunday. And my buddies said, hey, let's go over to New York City. You can have your first legal drink. And
like I hadn't been drinking already.
and Sally Rand is appearing at the club. Sally Rand,
I know
for
that
you
name.
younger
I was
people,
I'd
Say,
recognize
yeah.
that name.
was a fan dancer.
Oh.
She had these big white fans like this big
They covered up
that
certain
covered
things.
up everything, except
Until-
that as the music played, somehow the feathers dropped.
So burlesque.
So he thought that.
Yeah.
So he thought that my friends thought that might be a good thing for you to have, Dave, on your
Oh, my
18th
gosh.
birthday. So we arrived at the club, and we got bad news. The man at the door said, "No, Miss Rand is not here this evening. She is celebrating Easter."
Oh my gosh.
We were crushed.
Well, yeah. So was the ticket sales that night.
Yes.
Money was slim back then when we were kids. And, my mother wouldn't let me buy albums or 45s or anything. You didn't buy sodas. You didn't buy albums. You didn't eat out. You made your own clothes. Did your mother let you buy albums and records?
Oh, I did have a I had an allowance, but I worked too as a kid.
That's why
I had my
worked.
first job at age 5.
You can't do that today. It's against the law to work that young anymore.
Well, I
which I think's
think I could have slipped under the radar.
you could probably work back then.
I was a ball chaser at a tennis court.
And they paid you a little bit.
Well, I put up a little sign that said ball chasing. I think I spelled it right at age 5.
If you didn't, you probably got tips,
2
extra
cents
tips.
an hour.
No way.
Yeah, 2 cents an hour.
That's entrepreneurship right
And
there.
I would spend summer, usually the weekends was when the tennis court was busy. I would spend the summers over there, the Sundays, Saturdays, etc. And after a while, the guy who owned the tennis court said, "You're not charging enough. You think I should go to 3 cents?" He said, "No, 5 cents." Well, I was really worried about it. 5 cents. Who's going to buy my services for 5 cents? Well, he was right. And and there was one bit of ambiguity there. Was that 5 cents a court or 5 cents per person playing on the court?
Oh, yeah.
Because if it's doubles, that's 20
10
cents.
or 20, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one Saturday, I earned all of 65 cents. It was the top dollar for me. And I ran all the way home. It was around on the other side of the block from where I lived. And I came in and I told my parents, I had a great day, 65 cents. And I started reaching in my pocket. And
No, don't tell me.
well, it seems that I should not have been running because apparently the coins dropped out as I went along. Oh, there was some left, but my biggest payday turned out to be
Somebody
sort of a
else's
disappointment.
windfall.
Yes, yes, right.
Did you go back and trace your steps?
I did not. No,
What?
no. I knew the odds were very small. But anyway, as far as buying records,
Yeah. So how much was a record back
well,
then?
record was 35 cents.
Oh, yeah, you
And
could
you
have
got
gotten
two songs.
Yeah.
Oh,
flip
side
side.
A and side B.
And those were 78s? Or were
Yes,
those?
they
yeah.
were 78s.
Could you play a 78 on regular stereo? No.
No,
You
I
had to
had
pay
to
them on-
send my, I want to say record player, but that's not the right word.
Uh-huh.
I want to say phonograph, but that's old language.
It's not Victrola, is it?
Yeah.
That's even
well,
older.
actually, I had a Victrola. But anyway, I had to send it away, and they actually retrofitted it so that it would play 45s, LPs, and 78s.
That's committed right there.
It is a phonograph, though, isn't it? Wouldn't it have been?
A phonograph?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I think
Is it a
so.
phonograph?
I don't.
He
do
don't
we
know.
use
Look,
that
you
word
stumped him.
anymore?
Well, there's a kind of a resurgence of it. There's a company in Austin called the Austin Phonograph Company, and it's retrofitted. And she comes and does like events, and
Oh, okay.
there are these beautiful pieces of furniture. You know, as far as like artistic pieces. Anyway, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your career. I didn't know till you came in here today and said, I've had 6 careers or something crazy like that. I was like, what? And you started counting them on your finger. So where do you want to start to talking about?
Well, after Princeton, I got my doctorate at University of Michigan.
Okay.
So my first job from there was with J. Walter Thompson, at the time the world's largest advertising agency, and their Michigan client was Ford Motor Company. So I worked doing research for Ford for about 5 years in Detroit. Worked in Detroit.
Wow.
And then
Is that where you met your wife?
Yes. And
Because
then
you
I
were married a long time. Okay.
Then I got hired away by Chrysler Corporation.
Mm.
They had some real problems at the very top, and they brought in new management, and they wanted a whole new look, and they decided they wanted a whole new manager of marketing research. Me.
And you've got a reputation, so they hired you away. That's really wonderful.
So that's number 2.
Okay.
And then, have you ever heard of the Harris poll?
I don't think
You've
so.
heard of the Gallup poll,
Yes.
but you may not have heard of Lewis
Yes.
Harris. He was selling his services to Chrysler Corporation, and so I got to meet him, and he said, I could use you in my organization. So I became the executive vice president of Lewis Harris and Associates in New York City.
What building was that in?
That was in Rockefeller Center.
Wow. Okay.
I was there for a year and a half, and he decided, I'm going to reorganize. So you're not going to be the executive vice president anymore. You're going to be a division head along with 2 other people. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. So he said, well, if you'll read our employment agreement, I have the option of terminating you if you don't do what I'm asking you to do. So I walked out. I didn't have a job.
How unlike you that seems.
That seems that then I went to RCA.
Oh, how long was it before you got a job at RCA?
It took me, let's see, he gave me the news on December 31st. Wasn't that nice?
Wow. New Year's
Happy
Eve.
New Year,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I started in RCA, I think it was in April. So I had 3 months of,
What'd your wife think about that? Do you have any little small kids?
yeah.
And she was like, you walked out. What did you just do?
Well,
She didn't care.
yeah.
Okay.
It comes with the territory.
Oh, okay.
So I was with RCA until they decided to, and I don't count this as a career change, they decided to relocate our little team to Indianapolis. Still with RCA, but we were creating a wonderful new invention called a videotape recorder. It was an amazing thing. You actually could record stuff off the air, as you were watching it, you could record it. And then there's some pre-recorded tapes that you plug into the machine and it plays on your TV set. Wonderful technique.
Is that the VHS or is that
It
the
was
Betamax?
VHS.
It was VHS.
Well, actually,
or was it Betamax?
what
or
happened
whatever it was?
there was RCA was in development of this wonderful thing, but a Japanese company, Matsushita, they sell in the U.S. as Panasonic,
Oh, okay.
beat us to it.
Oh.
And so they said to our little team, we don't need you anymore. So I found myself out on the street in Indianapolis.
But you have a new love for LP You have a new love for records because
yeah.
while you've been there, how many years now have you been there?
Yes, well, altogether it's about 6 years.
So while you've been there, every month you're getting 10 new records or something?
Yeah, I guess I did get them in yes, I did, in
Yeah.
Indy as well.
So now
yeah,
you're back
I got
into
this
loving
much.
music again.
Yeah, so
Okay.
So now I don't have a job. And this time it took, let's see, 4 months before I joined Gulf Oil Corporation in Pittsburgh in marketing research and public affairs. Except that I was only there for 6 months or less because I didn't like my boss.
That happens.
We're talking business here, aren't
Yeah,
we?
right.
I was turned off by him completely.
Didn't trust him.
I did not trust him.
That'll do it.
He would have me give instructions to the advertising agency,
Mm-hmm.
and I would do so. And then he'd call me in and he'd say, they haven't yet produced what I told them to do. It was due yesterday. And I would say, well, actually, it wasn't due yesterday. It's due next Monday. Oh. So we were like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the personnel department, and they said, well, funny you should stop in here because we have an opening in Houston. And I got transferred to Houston.
Oh, good.
It was good. It was very
God, you
good.
lived a lot of places. All right, go ahead.
And they sent me off to a wonderful Gulf management school for 3 weeks. They had professors from really high prestige universities come and essentially teach us such the case method, such as they have at Harvard Business School.
Yeah.
For 3 weeks. And I was one of 25 people drawn from all through Gulf Oil Corporation to go to this course. So I went back after the course was over, and my boss said, well, come on in. I went in, and I started to tell him what a great thing it was and how pleased he said, well, wait a minute. Actually, the reason I called you in here is that essentially we've brought somebody over to take your job.
Oh, my gosh.
But you can report to him.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, that didn't sit very well with me. So when I was approached about a job in, now get this, Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's how he got here.
I said, I'll tell you what my first impression was. All right, Little Rock. I'll put a little of this in here. I was in the Army in 1957.
You were?
No, 50. Yeah, 57. Yeah, I was in the Army. After I got my doctorate, I went from PhD to PVT in one day. I did it in one day.
In one day. Signed up the next day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in 1957, I remember it so well, I was getting out of the Army and I was going to resume my job that I had a leave of absence from. I was on the train going from Philadelphia, where I was stationed, to New York, and I was reading the paper, and it was all about Little Rock. It was in the fall of 1955.
What paper?
Oh, Central High School. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, I am
And
not going there.
I thought, Little Rock, my gosh, I'm not quite sure where it is. You know, when I was a kid in the first grade, we learned all 48 states. We had to memorize what all 48 states were. And I could get 47 of them. The one that I always had trouble with was, Arkansas. So, and then comes...
I guess we didn't have Puerto Rico and Hawaii then?
No, not Puerto Rico. Hawaii and
we
Alaska.
still don't have
I mean,
Puerto Rico.
Hawaii and
have
Alaska.
Alaska.
I'm sorry.
Puerto
You're
Rico's
right.
not
Yeah,
state.
Alaska.
That's why I have sun gray here.
Alaska. So,
Yeah, because I can remember getting Alaska.
so that was my impression of it. When I was at Chrysler, we had an assignment. Somebody had to go to Little Rock to debrief a customer who had been pre-testing a turbine-powered automobile. And it was somebody from,
In
that's
Little Rock?
another story. In Little Rock, yeah.
He's got the
We had
stories.
50 cars made with turbine power, which means that
Wind.
it would, this was in...
No, I mean wind. Turbine, wind.
No, not wind.
Oh.
No, gas turbine.
Oh, gas turbine. Oh, okay, yeah.
And it would run on any fuel that would go through a pipe and was ignitable, including you could put brandy in your car. If
That would be a waste, but
you
okay.
wanted to. You could do that, and it would go. So we had
Moonshine.
we had these 50 cars, and we loaned them to people in each of the contiguous 48 states. There were 50 by that time, but we were not about to send one to Alaska. It was strictly experimental. So that was...
So Ford came to Arkansas to see somebody who had made a
Chrysler.
Oh, Chrysler. I'm
Chrysler,
sorry, you're
yeah.
at Chrysler now.
See,
So Chrysler sent somebody. Was it you they sent to Little Rock to look to?
Well, I was the head of the department that was handling these debriefings.
So where were these being made?
Well, the body was made in Italy and shipped over, just the skeleton, and then the chassis was built at the Chrysler manufacturing plants.
And so then they would make them and send them to all the 48 states, and then somebody in those 48 states would test them.
Yes.
I got you. That's the only thing you knew about Little Rock, was that you had a test model.
Well,
Chrysler.
what I knew about it by that time was that somebody had to go there in July to debrief them. And I thought, wait a minute, Little Rock and a hot part of the month. So I sent my lieutenant there. We also had one in Fargo, North Dakota, and we were due to debrief that family in February, and I sent my lieutenant to there too.
So this was not when you. I'm confused. Was this when you were at Chrysler, or was this
At Chrysler,
Okay,
yes.
so all of this was happening, but you're calling him your lieutenant. You mean just just a subordinate?
Yeah.
Okay. When you say lieutenant,
and
I
as
get
it
confused.
turned out, the best man at my wedding.
Oh, and he still talks to you.
He still talks to me. Yeah.
So when did you decide that you liked Little Rock? He came back and told you it was okay down there, or
Well,
something?
it took a little while. I have to be very frank about that. But the real test is, how do I feel about it now? When I retired from my own business, which is number 7 on the list.
It's next. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
We're going to talk about it next, but go ahead.
well, it's next to
Oh, yeah, no,
almost
it's
next. Yeah, there's another one in between. Oh, actually, there's 2 of them in between. But my wife Tish and I kind of looked at each other. Okay, if we're going to sell the company, the radio show can be done any place in the country. Where shall we go? And we agreed. We're going to go no place.
You're going to retire right here.
We are home.
But how did you decide to come to Little Rock? And what year is this that you moved?
This was
1983?
79.
Oh, 73. So 79, you decided, you came to visit and were pleasantly surprised, or just desperate to get away from,
Yeah.
which one? Pleasantly surprised or desperate to get away? Both.
I don't like the desperate word, but that's closer than the other one.
Okay.
That's the other one.
So you just came
It was
and
an
said,
opportunity.
it's just an opportunity to change where you're,
The man who was president of Channel 7, Bob Doubleday, decided that he wanted to start a market consulting firm. And he persuaded Gene Fortson, who is here in town now, to join him. And then they said they needed a third guy, a research guy. And I got this phone call while at Houston saying, hey, there's a great job opening. It's right down your alley. It's in Little Rock. I said, no, thanks. So they hired somebody else. And the somebody else and his wife went to Boston, their home base, to have a kind of a farewell party. And he got overcome with, oh, I can't do this. So he told them 2 days before he was to start that he wasn't going to take the job. So I get another phone call saying, really, this is right down your alley. Come on. Look, it doesn't hurt to go and listen. I listened and I liked what I heard, and that's how I joined the RD Doubleday Company. And one of the things we did was public opinion polls, which were reported on Channel 7. I would get with Steve Barnes on camera about once a month, and for like a 5-minute segment, talk about the results of some survey that we were doing. Now, they had a young governor in Arkansas at that time, and Gene Fortson said, "Yeah, I want to get you two together. You're a couple of Ivy Leaguers. You might be interested." So that's how I met Bill Clinton. He was, 32 at the time and running for re-election.
Mm-hmm.
And
A real go-getter.
he didn't make it that time.
So how did Stich Henderson change your...
Oh,
That count? You said that meeting the band leader, Stich Henderson, changed your life forever.
it did.
How
It
did
did.
that... I mean, everything seems to be changing your life
Well,
forever.
I know. I have 21 life-changing experiences.
You've counted them?
Yeah. And
I'm going to go count mine.
And yes, do that. Now, here's the definition that I use.
Okay.
There are 3 kinds of changes that take place. One of them is dictated by somebody else. Your parents decide where you're going to grow up as a kid.
There you go.
That's one. Another one is your decision, but it doesn't change your life. I think I'll have veal scallopini for lunch. It's not going to change my life whether I do or don't. And the third one is I'm coming to a crossroads, and as Yogi said, I'm going to take it.
Oh, it is Yogi.
Is that the quote?
I think something
close.
like that, yeah.
It's close.
Are you talking about Yogi Bear?
Yeah, Yogi Berra. Yeah.
Berra.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there is a Yogi Bear. Yogi Berra.
There is a Yogi Bear, too, but he's a cartoon character.
Well, he could have said it, though.
So that's my definition of the 21.
The fork in the road.
Fork in the road, and it's a decision to make, and whichever decision I make is going to change my life forever. I remember one time Tish said to me, "David," she said, "what do you think would have happened if you'd stayed with Chrysler?" And I said, "I don't know, and I don't care."
Yeah, no looking back.
Because there's no way of knowing. All I know is that my life would have been different, and her life as well, and so on. All right.
All right. So how did Stich Henderson
All right,
change your
Skitch.
life?
Okay. Skitch had a weekly commercial stage program, which was broadcast nationally.
And he's a
including-
band leader, right?
Yes. He led the band on the Tonight Show on TV for a while.
Oh, really?
Cool.
I thought that was that other guy.
Yeah, that other guy did it too.
Yeah, whatever his name was.
A lot of people have over the years.
Oh, I guess so.
And his producer called, and he said, "Skitch is going to have Helen Forrest as his guest for next week's program, and they're going to be talking about the recording that she did with Benny Goodman, The Man I Love." He said, "For some reason, we can't find that record. I understand that you have a rather large record collection. Would you happen to have that?" And I said, "Well, just a minute. Let me just check. I think I do." And in those days, in 1983, I didn't have it on computer. I had it all handwritten, and I came back to the phone. I said, yeah, I've got 3 copies of it. It was old 78s down there in the basement, 3 of them. He said, great. Would you pick out the best of the 3, put it on tape, audio tape, of course. We had that. I mean, we were up to date.
Yeah.
And here's my FedEx number. Send it to us. We need it for next week's broadcast. Okay, I did that. The next Saturday morning, we were in the kitchen at breakfast time. I think it came on at 10 o'clock.
Now, where are you living at this time?
We're living in Little Rock.
You're living in Little Rock. Your friend from New York on the Johnny Carson show calls you in Little Rock.
Oh, well, that's not exactly right. It's someone who knew me and knew the station.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so, yeah, we just finished having pancakes, and Tish was washing the dishes, and I was sitting there in the breakfast room listening to the radio, listening to Stich Henderson. And the announcer, Skitch himself came on. He said, well, Helen, you had a real success with that recording you made with Benny Goodman, the man I love. Well, so let's listen to it. And the music starts. I reach over like this, grab a pen, and I start writing. Tish looks over at me, and she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing a news release. A news release? What about? About the fact that local man's record is being played on national radio. Well, she gave me one of those wifely looks like...
Here he goes.
He just rolled his eyes, everybody. That's an entrepreneur right there. All right, keep telling us.
She said, who's going to care? I said, well, I don't know. I'm going to send this into the paper, and maybe they'll print it. Maybe they need a little paragraph someplace. She shook her head. Go ahead, another one of your Walter Mitty moments. You'll have to look that up.
I know it. All right.
So I said, but before I send it to the paper, I better check with the station. So I went over to North Little Rock to what was called the Twin City Bank building. Went up to the top, and there was a studio, not as plush, of course, as where we are here.
Yeah.
But studio, and I talked with the studio manager. I showed him the article, and he kind of glanced at it and pushed it away, and he said, have you ever been on radio? And I said, no. Well, do you know how to mix? I said, well, at a social party, I get around. He said, oh, never mind. He said, we have an engineer on duty for all 24 hours. Would you be interested in doing a program? And I thought that was a kind of a neat idea. Yeah. I could put together a 1-hour program. He said, no, it would have to be 2 hours. 2 hours? Yeah, he said, we have a certain segment that we need to fill. I said, well, I'm not so sure I want to do 2 hours. Well, that's all we can do. And by the way, he said, the job doesn't pay anything.
It's like my job.
So we compromised. I did 2 1-hour programs back to back. Clever, right?
Wait a minute.
What's the difference? I don't understand.
Right.
Or did he get the best of me on that one? I don't know.
Yeah, what was the thinking behind that?
But that's how it started in 1983.
And who came up with the name? Swingin' Down the Lane.
Well, there's a little story there. It used to be A Sentimental Journey with David Miller.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. Someone copyright problems.
I used that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I used that for 4 or 5 years. And then I got a call from a lawyer in Florida. It seems that someone had been traveling through Arkansas and happened to catch the program and the title and decided that, wait a minute, he's using the name that we already have.
Oh.
So I said, oh, okay, well, I'll change it. I said, I've got things in production now. I'll change it in probably 2 or 3 weeks. He said, I remember exactly what he said. There were 3 words that stuck out in my mind. Cease, desist, now. So this call came in on a Friday, and Tish and I got together and tried to figure out, what are we going to do? And I remembered this 1922 song, Swingin' Down the Lane. And I said, that's what we're going to use.
And it's too old to be copyrighted back then. There wasn't hardly anybody copyrighting anything back in those days.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But
A Sentimental Journey, is that a reference to a song?
yes, it
A
is.
sentimental feeling?
Yes, the song was a big hit in 1943.
Who did it?
Les Brown with Doris Day on the vocal.
Yeah, that would be
But
very.
here's the nice thing about it.
What?
Back in 1983, this was a nostalgia program, and my audience were the same age as me, and this was our music that I was bringing back to life. Okay, but as the years have gone by, it's not nostalgia. I'm a music educator now. I'm telling people about things that they did not experience, and musicians that they may never have heard of, but which were great in their day. So Swingin' Down the Lane gives me that flexibility to hop through different decades.
You're absolutely a teacher.
I am.
Absolutely a teacher today. When you listen to your radio station, it is just a wealth of information that
love
I'm
listening
not
to
sure
it.
you can get anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's Sunday nights, right? What time's your show?
It's Friday night now, 9 o'clock.
Oh, did it used to be Sunday night?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay.
Right.
It's Friday nights now at 9 o'clock
9 o'clock.
for 2 hours?
One
1 hour? You got to go back to 1 hour?
1 hour.
Two 1 hours back to back?
When I switched away from the commercial station to NPR, first in Little Rock and then broadening, 1 hour was what they wanted.
So
not
what
to.
station were you on originally? Because now you're on NPR, or
Yeah,
not NPR, KUAR.
KUAR.
Public radio.
The station has gone out of business, and I'm not sure I can remember the call letters even.
Was it AM or FM? Probably FM in 83. How did you get on 40 radio stations? Is that because it's public radio?
Well, I don't really know how it happened. Like Topsy, it just grew.
Just happened. Organically. It just happened organically.
Something like that.
Yeah, you're at 40 radio stations now, teaching.
I've got one in Australia,
No way.
Perth, Australia. I've got 2 in Perth. I picked up another one.
Do you get paid now? I hope. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a novel concept. It took me a while to catch on.
How long did it take you before you got paid? 9 years.
Yes, probably 9 years.
Everything in business is 9 years. It took me 9 years to get Arkansas Flag and Banner before I could get paid. I've been doing this radio station for 5. Gray, we only got 4 more years to go
And
before we get.
maybe somebody will pay us to do this.
Yeah. Well,
I
when
won't hold my breath.
when it came to multiple stations, it just seemed to make sense. So, wait a minute, I can't give this away for free. Besides, I have to pay NPR in Washington
Right.
to distribute it for me. It's a modest fee, but it's money.
Yeah.
So I need to get it
Let's
back.
take another quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the Mr. David Miller, host of Swingin' Down the Lane, a radio show playing music from David's very own collection of over 9,000 songs from the big band era. And Mr. Miller is the author of his book, Close Encounters, an autobiography with excerpts from 80-plus interviews. Still to come, we're going to talk about his book, and we're going to talk about his interviews, and we're going to talk about big band music and traveling and the Green Book. I want to hear about and why big bands don't really work anymore. I mean, they're just too expensive. We'll be back after the break. We have no break commercial?
No.
Okay. All right, we're back. You need anything, David? Okay. This is so fascinating.
I know. We just kind of glossed over the fact that you went to Princeton, which I think is crazy.
And he's been in the service, and he's had 1,000 jobs, and he's lived all over the place, and he started doing press releases before anybody else did. And I don't even know how you went ahead and went from doing polling with telephones and mail to now you're probably having to do polling with internet and moved right into computers. But I am going to ask you that. All right. I'm okay. We're ready, Heidi. I'm going. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with Mr. David Miller, host of the radio show Swingin Down the Lane, a tribute to the big band era music. Before the show, we talked about all the places that David has lived, and it's been many. We talked about climbing the corporate ladder. He was doing it before anybody else probably even thought much about doing it. You had quite a following. People came to get you, and you moved from large corporation to another large corporation. You ended up at RCA, the record company. You fell back in love with music. Now, circumstance has it, you ended up in Little Rock, Arkansas, that you thought was the end of the world. Now you've come to love it like everybody that comes here does. We've had, I can't tell you how many guests we've had on here that said they thought, Little Rock, what am I going to do going to Little Rock? And then they get here and they're like, oh, it's nice here.
And then they spend 30 plus years here or something.
And retire. So now let's talk about the big band music. I mean, why is it still important to people and for them to hear about it?
Well, I talked to band leaders who will, how do I say it? Because most of them have died since I've talked with them. But I asked the question, will big bands ever come back?
That is the question.
And their answer, and I believe they're completely correct, is it's never gone away, and it will never go away. And here's why. Well, back in the 1940s, you've seen the pictures, the black and white pictures of dancing couples and a bandstand and 14 guys in tuxedos playing music while young people are dancing around. That went away. Actually, it went away in large part at the end of World War II because the GIs came back. They married, they had children. They can't go out. They don't want to go out to ballrooms to dance anymore.
Yeah, they stopped dancing.
And the ballrooms then disappeared. Well, you know about the Dreamland Ballroom and how it had its high spot, but then there came the time when, well, for example, vocal groups came in, starting, I suppose, with Elvis, and then the Beatles. Now, that's one person, and then it's 4 people. It's not 14 people in tuxedos playing wonderful music. So that's why it seemed to be going away, although there were, and during the last 40 years of last century, there were bands that were playing, but they didn't get the big venues. They played for country clubs or parties for rich people. They weren't on the radio, except for Lawrence Welk. They weren't on television.
Which is still on television, if anybody wants to know.
Yeah.
My grandkids love to watch Lawrence Welk.
Oh, yes, yes. So, all right. So big bands weren't dead, but they certainly weren't thriving. Now, what has happened now is that big bands are going into the concert halls. They're putting, never mind the dancing, they're going into concert halls.
Really?
The big breakthrough actually took place in 1938. January 19th, if I recall correctly, Carnegie Hall. Benny Goodman at Carnegie Hall. I mean, that got big coverage in the New York Times and the Herald Tribune because, wow, this swing stuff at the place where Toscanini performs.
Yeah.
But that was just the beginning. And that's what's happening today. It used to happen.
Well, you just can't pay those kind of performers. I mean, how many people are in a big band? How many people were in Count Basie's band? How many horns? I mean,
like
Chicago.
14.
Yeah, Chicago, that band Chicago has a lot of musicians.
Mm-hmm.
David Matthews' band has a lot of musicians. They have a lot of horns.
David Miller.
Dave Matthews.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, no, I agree.
You know.
That's in between your generation and mine.
Do you know who David Matthews is?
I've heard of him.
He's got a lot of horns.
Oh, my God.
You singing. So you
Are we
wouldn't
going to
like
cut
it.
that out? Oh, no, we're not.
So that's what I say, that big bands are never going to go away. They are going to be an attraction to Robinson Auditorium.
So, yeah.
And there's one big band that is touring now. It's the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
Oh, that's what I was trying to think of with the Miller thing. They came to the Fayetteville a few years ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did they sell tickets?
They
Do people go?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
yes.
there's no dancing. You sit in the audience and watch.
That's right. That's correct.
People, you know,
Boogie in the
in
aisles?
their seats.
Oh,
but,
boogie in
you
there.
know,
That's not dancing.
Yeah.
No, but no, it's not.
No, they. I get their email, their schedule, and especially when they come to Arkansas, probably once a year, they come someplace in Arkansas. The last time I saw them was on the UCA campus.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Wonderful concert hall there.
So what about the Green Book? Have y'all seen that movie and everything about the Green Book?
I have a green book.
Oh, my gosh, your book is green. Did you think about that? So your book, Close Encounters, did you pick it green for that reason?
No.
Oh, but I love the title because it talks about all the stars in your book. You've met huge stars. Tell us about some of the interviews that you write about in your book. Linda Ronstadt?
Linda came to Little Rock to perform with the Arkansas Symphony, several years ago. And the symphony folks asked me if I would be interested in interviewing her. And it took me a good split second before I said yes. So I interviewed her.
On the radio?
I interviewed her by telephone, but
Okay.
then I later met her at the concert itself. And I knew of Linda Ronstadt. I mean, how could you not know about her? Her personal life was in the headlines.
Yes, she dated the governor of California.
Exactly. And but her music didn't mean much to me until in the early 80s, she and Nelson Riddle got together for a couple of LPs. Nelson Riddle I knew very well. He was an outstanding arranger for big bands, and then he formed his own orchestra, which was wonderful because of his arranging skills. And I listened to that album. And so I talked with her. Our whole conversation had nothing to do with her. It had to do with her relationships with Nelson Riddle. I told her that I understood that he was rather moody and hard to work with. And she said, no, I worked with him very well. I have in my book the actual quotes of what she said about him. But that was my close encounter with her, probably different from anybody else's who might want to interview her, because I come from the standpoint of big bands and Nelson Riddle, and okay, tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Tell
What
me
about
that.
Frankie Lane? You interviewed Frankie Lane?
Frankie Lane? Yes.
Isn't he a heartthrob? Wasn't he a heartthrob? He's a crooner. Crooner.
Yeah, he was a crooner. He lived in San Diego, and I was in San Diego for, it was a college mini reunion. We held them all around the country. And so I took the afternoon off to interview him, and his personal manager told me, she said, yes, you can meet him at 2:00, but you'll only have an hour, just from 2 to 3. So I drove to his home, lovely place, overlooking San Diego Harbor.
Wow.
Way up on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a really, really nice guy. We had a wonderful interview for, I guess, 55 minutes, because then she came in to say, it's almost 3:00. So we finished up. He gave me an autographed CD. It's, to Dave, best wishes or whatever. And I looked at it and I said, I'm not familiar with this. When did you record it? He said, 84. I said, 1984? No, he said, when I was 84. Oh, wow. And it is really
How old was he when you
CD.
interviewed him?
He was 90, I think.
Really?
90.
Wow.
Still performing.
Still performing.
Yeah.
I think it keeps you young. You think, the big band era kind of had a dip when rock and roll became popular. But my husband started listening to Frank Sinatra sometime, I don't know, he listened to Johnny Cash and Frank Sinatra, seems like all the time.
Turn of the century. That's when I was growing up.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. And do you think and then came out Michael Bublé and Sam Smith more recently. You think they're the reasons why the big band music's kind of coming back, is because they're making people familiar with these songs? I mean, the crooner songs, not necessarily with the orchestra leader songs.
Yes, I don't know that has a direct impact on big bands.
Mm-hmm.
No, of course, I'm very happy that the songs are staying in the public view. I've just finished doing a series of 2 programs playing the music that was popular in 1922, 100 years ago. And I'm so pleased at how many of them I'm familiar with, because they had a new life in the 1940s and 1950s.
Oh, really?
And I think the same thing is going to happen.
And so a lot of these Frank Sinatra songs are having a new life because of Michael Bublé.
Yes.
And they're better, and with technology so much better, they have a better sound quality. Do you like the way vinyl sounds over the way digital recording sounds?
I don't understand the fuss about it.
I don't either. I really don't either.
I play, yesterday I was playing vinyl, and I have a software program that detects clicks and background hums, and I have to use it on LPs.
Yeah, they're all scratched up.
And I think, why would someone choose that versus CD? And I think the answer is that they have actually a better hearing apparatus than I do. I think they are able to detect what they refer to as a purer sound on LPs.
Warmth.
Whereas they say, well, CDs, because of the processing, is more of an artificial sound. Honestly, I don't know that. I can't make that distinction.
I can't.
It's sort of like talking to my wine connoisseur friends. Oh, there's just a touch of persimmon. And the body indicates perhaps a strawberry blend. And I say, hey, this is good wine.
wish y'all could see his face when he was telling that story. Wasn't that
That's why
funny?
you got to watch on YouTube.
Where did the term crooner come from? Yeah, so I looked it up. It said a crooner is typically a male voice. I didn't know it had to be only a male voice, who sings sentimental songs in a soft, low voice of romantic jazz or pop standards.
Yeah, I don't think it was used until Sinatra came along.
And then it says, because I thought, well, what are women called? And they're called chanteuses.
Oh,
Chanteuse, yes.
Chanteuse,
yes.
yeah.
Who knew that?
Well, that's just a French word.
That's about to say.
means
That's just somebody
female
Singer.
chanter.
Singer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
chanter,
singer.
female chanter. All right, I want to tell everybody, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Mr. David Miller, host of the radio show Swingin Down the Lane, a tribute to the big band era music. He also has a book titled Close Encounters that he's written. It's an autobiography with excerpts from 80-plus interviewees. Why should I buy this book? Who would enjoy it?
I think it's got a dual audience. One is obvious, people who love the big band sound, regardless of what their age is. They can get some insight into what it's all about. What's the background behind it? I have a lot of excerpts from interviews that show, from my standpoint, the things that I want to know about famous people.
What's one that sticks out? What's one of your favorite excerpts in there?
Oh, let me see. Well, I'll tell you, it's a band leader that's kind of
Obscure?
different.
Is he obscure? Is he an obscure band leader? Is he an obscure band leader?
Yeah.
One we would know or one we wouldn't
He's
know?
an obscure one. Should we not talk about an obscure one?
No. No, but when you had to grab your book to look his name up, I
Yeah,
thought,
no,
well, this must
I
be...
have a picture of him here with his,
Let's see.
where I am greeting my house guests. They rolled into our driveway.
Oh, my God, look at
literally,
that car.
that's a Rolls Royce.
Look at that. Well, I'd get it for the pictures, honey. Oh, it's nice paper you put it on.
His name was John Catron.
John Catron and Peggy Lafferty.
What a character. I met him at the Big Band Academy of America annual banquet. I came early, and he and Peggy Lafferty came early, and we got to chatting. I was among the last people to visit him before he died.
Must have died young.
No, he did not.
Oh.
No, because I knew him for several years after
okay.
that. After that, he went into the Army, and oh gosh, so much to say about him. He went into the Army, and one day he and a friend decided that they would go over to the shooting range and do a little target practice with their M1 rifles. He reached into the back seat where he had his rifle and unfortunately hit the trigger, and it blasted off 2 fingers of his hand.
Whoa.
He spent the rest of his Army career in hospital, but then he was a musician. He played the string bass until this happened.
Oh, my
He
gosh.
couldn't play the string bass anymore. So the Army said, all right, well, you can take up the drums. You can drum. And believe it or not, you ever heard of Robert Ripley and his column, Believe It or Not?
Yeah, well, sure.
Yeah, well, he had this guy. He said, believe it or not, one-armed drummer in the Army. Well, he wasn't really one-armed. He had one arm that he could
Sounds
drum
very,
He's
with.
an
Sounds very
eight-fingered
Ripley.
drummer.
But he showed me that cartoon. Well, he was stationed in California at an Army installation, and he noticed that recruits came in with their cars, but then after basic training, they were shipped someplace else. What were they to do with their car? So he would buy their car and sell it to the new guys that are coming in, and he'd make $100 maybe on the deal. After the war was over, this was during the war.
Smart.
He started a Volkswagen dealership, the Beatles.
Yeah. Oh, made a killing.
He made a killing.
Yeah.
He had the largest Volkswagen dealership in the state of California.
I like the way you say it. How you say Volkswagen?
Volkswagen.
Yeah, that's good.
So, anyway.
Do you put your most embarrassing moment in here? Do you put your most embarrassing interview moment into this book?
Do you know what it is?
No.
I don't know which one to pick.
We've all got them.
I'll think about that. Let's go to something else while I try to figure out which one I should
All right, Nat
confess.
King Cole. I'm looking right here in your book at Nat King Cole. He played in the Dreamland Ballroom.
Ah, yes.
And so did Cab Calloway and Duke Ellington and B.B. King. And for those people that don't know me, I have the Arkansas Flag and Banner building in downtown Little Rock with the famous Dreamland Ballroom on the 3rd floor. And every year, except for the year of COVID, we have one fundraiser that's called Dancing into Dreamland. And we celebrate dancers. And it's kind of like Dancing with the Stars, except for they're all amateurs. And
Not anymore.
well, not yeah, right. And they and it's all genres. It's not just ballroom. It's all genres. But I'm telling the listeners this because David has been a judge since the very first time.
Since the very first time.
So this will be our 11th year. It would be our 12th, except for we took a break because of COVID one year. So February the 12th of this year, 2022, we are going to have Dancing into Dreamland again. And you love Dreamland, I think, because all your favorite people played on that stage.
Well, that is certainly part of it. The other part is an amazing renovation of the building. I mean, when friends come from out of state, I'll pick them up at the airport, and I'll say, well, we're going to stop off at Dreamland. I want you to see this. And like me, they are just amazed at how it has been preserved, not over-preserved, but rather with the idea of getting back to what it was back in the days of on through the 1950s, maybe.
They built
60s.
it in the 16. They started building it in 1916. I think finished it in 18, and then
It would have been the 50s.
It was really in its heyday after the war. It was the African Americans. Was a Negro. What was it called? The Negro Officers Club. USO Negroes Club or something like that. And so it had some great dances and it had some great entertainers, and the only person that I cannot find that played at the Dreamland is Elvis Presley. That's the only person I can't document. But I mean, even Red Fox played on the stage. Louis Armstrong, B.B. King. I got to interview B.B. King one time. I have documentation he was there from the newspaper, but he could not remember playing there. Little lady, he said to me, little lady, I can't remember everywhere I played. I played 265 days a year. I was like, okay, fine, forget it. I just kept pressuring him. You sure you don't remember? So this year we're coming up again, and we're going to have it together. We're going to be together in just a few weeks. Yeah. Did you think of that? Did you think of what it was that was your most embarrassing moment? You're going to skip. All right, fine.
I suppose I was giving a presentation in Denver for some group that got together once a month to hear some out-of-town speaker. And I had an elaborate presentation, which consisted of 2 slide projectors that were synced so that one slide would go on and then automatically, as I clicked, another slide would go on. And so I was into my pitch talking about the history of the big bands. And it turns out that in that particular hall, the screen was located, like 10 feet above the level where I was. So the projectors are going up like this. And the slides got fouled up a little bit. And worse than that, when we finally got them going, they were out of sequence by 1. Slide 2, then comes slide 1, then slide 4, then comes slide 3. And I'm meanwhile following a script. That was an embarrassing moment.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but they did pay me anyway.
Well, good. So you know what? I wish we could have at the Dancing into Dreamland this year. You know what would be fun? If we could ever have burlesque at the show. It would be so much
Full circle.
fun. I know. I got to ask you, because I didn't earlier, and then this will be our last question. Because, where do people buy your book? I need to know that.
On the website, it's swingindownthelane.com.
There you go. Go buy your book there. And then your show, again, is on Friday nights.
Friday nights, KUAR 89.1 on your FM dial.
There you go. So when you went from being this marketing guru that everybody was seeking, marketing research guru that was being sought after by lots of large corporations, and then all of a sudden you're now doing a free radio show, when did you make the transition to decide, I'm going to quit working for corporations and become a radio show host full-time, or did you ever?
Well, I started my own company in 1981.
What was it? Marketing research company?
Miller Research Group.
Oh. How did computers change it?
Made it a lot easier, really.
I expected you to say harder.
No, easier. I had here in town an office that included 35 stations for interviewers to sit down with phones, call people, and key in their responses into the computer.
And then you could sort and collect. Do you still have that business?
No, I sold it in 1997 because I thought, hey, I'm not going to work all of my life.
Yeah.
And besides, I do have my radio program.
So is it a full-time job now?
It's the only job. Whether it's full-time or not depends on...
What you call full-time?
Yeah.
It's not even a job for you. You enjoy it so much.
Sure.
Okay, I have your gift. I should have brought... It's a desk set of flags, and I should have brought a flag from... I could have bought a flag from all the places you've lived, and it would be like this beautiful array of flags from every state. But I just gave you Arkansas because that's your home now.
Yes,
and then
indeed.
I gave you New Jersey because that's where you were born.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that is something. That is classic.
It's classy and classic. I have loved visiting with you more than I can even tell you.
Well, I love you.
I love you too. And I'll see you in 2 weeks at Dancing into Dreamland. We're going to have a reveling night of partying and dancing. It's going to be great.
I enjoy it thoroughly. This will be number 11 for me.
That's right. And 10 more to go. We're going to do, I forgot to tell you, new decade, new group of dancers. Everybody's going to be different.
Very exciting.
We closed out the decade with the Tournament of Champions.
Oh, yes.
Yes, remember?
Yes.
So all the champions came back last year. We had a Tournament of Champions. I think it was our best year ever. Everybody there was just off the chart. Well, we're starting over all new with a new decade, fresh dancers, and some of them are just fabulous, and they've come from actually New Delhi and London.
Interesting.
I know. I'm not going to tell you anymore, though, because you're a judge and you can't know anything.
Oh, yes, that's right.
All right. It's time for us to go. Thank you, dear. In closing, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the picture of Kerry's face in the center of the screen. For more of Kerry's interviews, click either video on the right of the screen. And as always, thank you for watching.